Thank you for being patient. This is going to be the first real talk of this short retreat. Last night I was tired, maybe many of you were as well, and we're just getting settled in. But now hopefully that you're settled into your accommodation, had a good breakfast, those of you eating breakfasts, and the opportunity now to spend the next few days in developing the mind in stillness. What I said last night, that the path to deep meditation is a path of stillness, not concentration. And a simile which I like to give is the simile of the emperor. Talking in similes makes it easier for us to remember the teachings of the Buddha. And sometimes we use the Buddha's similes, sometimes we invent our own to try and convey the same message. Once there was an emperor, and he was, or it, because no one knew whether it was a he or she, was very, very, very powerful. But the problem was that no one knew who this emperor truly was. They did not know whether it was male or female, whether it was Sinhalese or Tamil, or Western, or Chinese, or African, because every time they saw the emperor was covered with 5 pieces of clothing, which completely obscured who he really was. The emperor had boots which went up to his thighs. He had trousers which covered the top of his boots and went up to his waist. He had a jacket which overlapped his trousers, which extended in the sleeves to the wrists with a high collar. He had gloves which overlapped the end of his sleeves. And lastly, he had a helmet which covered his whole face and overlapped the top of his tunic. Those 5 clothes, the boots, the trousers, the jacket, the gloves, and the helmet, covered every square inch of the emperor's skin, so no one knew who he was, or if it was a he, whether they were old or young, whatever race, whatever gender, they could not say, because he was always fully clothed. So the only way to understand what that emperor truly is to take off all the clothes and find out who is this being underneath. And in this simile, the emperor is your mind, is your citta, always covered over with the 5 senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and physical sensations. Because these 5 senses, the panchayatana, because they're always covering over our mind, we can never know what this citta really is. Who is it that is listening to me right now? Who was it who decided to come here today, if it really was anyone at all? So we do this practice of meditation to find out what this mind, what this citta truly is. And the only way we can do that is to take off these 5 things covering your citta. Take away seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and physical sensations, till those 5 external ayatanas, 5 external sense bases, totally vanish. And when they vanish, what's left can only be the 6th sense, the mind. So part of the job of meditation is to learn how to take off those 5 external senses which cover up the emperor within, your citta, your mind. But it's not an easy thing to do. But this is what we do in meditation. How do you take off that first covering of seeing? You close your eyes. And as I mentioned in Narada Center a couple of nights ago, that when you close your eyes, the first thing you see is blackness, the inside of your eyelids. But if you're mindful enough, you will notice that a short time later, you don't even see blackness. You see nothing at all, because the sense of sight turns off. It ceases temporarily. When I was a layman, being a Buddhist in England where there were hardly any other Buddhists, and there were very few places I could go to practice meditation, there was a Zen monastery opened up in the north of England. And even though I was a Theravadan, still any place where I could meditate would be a place I would go. So I went to this Zen monastery for a weekend meditation retreat. And in the Japanese Zen tradition, we all had to sit in a row, facing the wall with our eyes open. We weren't allowed to close our eyes. They had many strange traditions in Zen. They even had the teacher would come around behind you with a big stick, and if you started nodding, whack, he would hit you. That was one way to overcome sloth and torpor, but I do not recommend it. I never got hit. You know why? Because the person sitting next to me, he got hit. And when I heard it go whack, I was so scared, all my sloth and torpor disappeared. But when you open your eyes and stare at a blank wall, a strange thing happens. After a few minutes, the wall disappears. The reason is, it's nothing magical. It is just the nature of the human brain. It is science. Our human brains are only made to notice what changes. If you are looking at something like a wall and it does not move, it does not change, after a while it is the nature of your brain to turn off the sense of sight. Nothing is happening. It's much easier, though, to close the eyes and see that ordinary blackness in front of your eyelids. And after a while, the brain realizes nothing's going on, and it turns off, and the sense of sight stops. That is one of the easiest senses to turn off. We can just close our eyes, and we're not seeing anymore. Smell and taste are also very easy senses to turn off. But the two hard ones to turn off is the sense of hearing and the sense of physical touch, which is why it is good to meditate in quiet places. Even if you have the noise of the rain on the metal roofs, that does not matter, because it does not change. After a while, you don't hear it. Can you hear the sound of the rain now? In a few minutes, you won't hear it at all. Why? Because it doesn't change, and the brain thinks it's not important. This is one reason why, when we're meditating in a group, we should never make loud sounds or quick sounds which disturb the stillness, because meditators can hear that, and it means they cannot turn off the sense of sound. It needs to be understood, why is it we have no control over our hearing? Why is it that people are having a conversation which has nothing to do with us, but we hear it? Why is it the sound of a car going out of the car park? We have no business with that, but why is it that we have to hear it? One of the reasons is because the way that our human body has evolved over many hundreds and thousands of years. It is our sense of hearing which has been the last line of defense. In the middle of the night we hear the burglar, because through sound. We can hear the tiger in the forest. In fact, we wake up in the morning to an alarm clock through something ringing, because this sense of sound is our safety mechanism to protect us from harm, which is one of the reasons why it is very difficult to turn off the sense of sound. But if you sit in a quiet place, and if any sound happens, you think that's none of my business, none of my concern, and you stay deep inside, then sound can disappear. But one of the most difficult of the five senses to settle down, to make still, is your physical body. The sensations which you experience in your body are constant. One person in Thailand reminded me a long time ago that it's very hard to sit perfectly still. Why? Because there's always something itching. There's always something which is aching. We can see even now people moving. Why are you moving now? To find a better piece of comfort. It's because this body is always irritating. You're pulling your ear. You are scratching your foot. You are moving your toes. You are scratching your nose. I am just describing what I'm seeing in front of me right now. Look at other people, and how hard is it to sit absolutely still? Why? Because your body constantly demands attention. And because of that, it's very difficult to calm this body down. However, there is a means to do that. First of all, you have to find a comfortable position to sit meditation in. Remember, the first teaching of the Lord Buddha was the Majjhima Patipada, at the very beginning of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Before the Buddha even mentioned the Four Noble Truths, he taught about avoiding the extremes of practices which tire and wear out the body, and also sensory indulgence. And his first 5 disciples thought that he'd missed that middle path, thought he'd gone on a path of indulgence, because he was not ascetic enough for them. And later on, when the Buddha became enlightened, and he went to see those 5 ascetics, the 5 ascetics realized that they were wrong, the Buddha was right. They were pushing their bodies too hard. And the Buddha found that beautiful middle way, where he could put his body down, sit it on a seat, and there was no aches, no pains, no tightness or tension in his body, which meant the physical sensations could disappear. Understanding that, the first way of letting go of this 5th sense of the body is having a comfortable posture. So don't think that you have to sit cross-legged with a straight back on spikes or broken glass to become enlightened. Do not harm your body. If you want to use an extra cushion, please do so. If you need to sit on a chair, please do so. There is nothing magic about sitting cross-legged on the floor. Remember, I spend most of my time in Western countries teaching meditation. And these are 2 Caucasians who spent their whole life sitting on chairs. And when I ask them, sit down on the floor and cross your legs in full lotus, back straight, chin in, and meditate, after 1 or 2 minutes, it's excruciating. It's the same thing which the US Marines do in Guantanamo Bay. It is called stress postures, and it's against the law. So do not put yourself in a stress posture for too long, because all that does is creates pain in the body, which makes it very difficult for you to let go of the body and for the sense of touch to disappear. So the first thing is to get a comfortable posture. Obviously not a posture which you'll fall asleep in, but also not a posture which you find too much tightness and tension. For a long time I have been teaching people that if you do get an ache or a pain in the meditation, it's much better to move than to endure. If it's at the beginning of the meditation, fine, endure, because it's usually just a bit of restlessness. But if it's during the middle of the meditation and you say you have a pain in your knee, very slowly and mindfully, without opening your eyes, just move. It takes about 10 seconds. And after that 10 seconds, you have lost a little bit of your meditation peace. But you soon make it up again and go far deeper. But if you endure that pain, you will never be able to go deep and let go of your body, to have that fifth sense disappear. The pain will always be a distraction for you. It's the same way in meditation retreats when you are sitting together. If you feel like coughing, please cough as soon as possible to lessen the irritation. Because if you don't cough, the irritation builds and builds and builds. It is what we call the volcano effect. As the pressure builds, when you do cough, it is extremely loud, and you spray all the people around you with your saliva. It is not a healthy thing to do. That's much better. A little cough like that, instead of which really disturbs everybody. So, be kind and wise to your body, so that it can settle down and disappear. However, it's not an easy thing to do, because there are always irritations in this body, even no matter how well you find a posture. So we have to somehow take our attention away from this body, so that it can just disappear. In the same way, you take your attention away from sound, and then it disappears, like the sound of the rain disappeared. Back again now. If you can do that, you'll find the body vanishes. And this is an important part of the meditation, to experience the body just disappearing. When I teach this to the lay community, sometimes for the first time in their life they cannot feel their hands. And very often they get afraid. Many times people have come to me and said, I was meditating, I was becoming peaceful. Now I suddenly realize I can't feel my legs. What's going on? I'm going crazy. I'm going sick. Please know that this is standard experience in meditation. Your body disappears. And it's wonderful that it disappears. I had to learn this when I was, again, young monk in Thailand. In those days, was meditating in the jungle. Remember, I was Western monk. I was born in London. I was not used to jungles. Especially I was not used to mosquitoes. I don't know, many of you come from Nauyana. I don't know what the mosquitoes are like there. But in the northeastern Thailand, they were terrible. And in the evening we would meditate under the trees together. And the mosquitoes would cover your arm. Together with another monk, we used to count the mosquitoes to see who could count the most. I got up to about 60 or 70 at a time. And I realized you can't count more than that at a time, because they were too close together. You could not separate them. And the reason why they were coming was because this was the first time in that part of the world they had Western monks. The first time the mosquitoes had Western food. You know what it's like whenever a new restaurant opens up in town, whether it's Japanese food or Western food or Brazilian food. It's always popular while everybody likes to try it. And I'm sure the mosquitoes were telling all their friends, hey guys, there's Western food in this monastery, come and try it. And you also know the mosquitoes. Mosquitoes have been conditioned through generations to know when they see a brown robe, it is a safe meal. Because we really do keep our precepts, we never squash the mosquitoes. Even 8 preceptors or 5 preceptors, sometimes you do, I've seen you. But as monks, we're safe. And also, as I said the other night, that you can see how we dress. We have bald head, we've got bare shoulders. We have more seats at the dinner table, as it were, for the mosquitoes than the lay people do. So the mosquitoes were driving you crazy. So the only thing I could do to endure was to focus on my breathing. I was doing anapanasati. to focus on it. And every time I wandered away from my breath, I could actually feel the mosquitoes. So I didn't wander away from my breath very much at all, until I focused so well on my breath, the whole body vanished. I literally could not feel my arms or my head. It had gone. And that was a great teaching for me, to know that yes, you can focus on one simple thing like the breath, and the rest of your body totally vanishes. And it gave me a great sense of freedom from the irritation of being bitten by mosquitoes. And the other time which I remember in my early years doing this was when I was in hospital with typhus fever. In that particular part of Thailand, there were some little mites, these very small insects living on the forest floor, who carried the virus called scrub typhus. The local villagers who'd grown up in that area for generations had a natural immunity. But the Western monks coming there for the first time, or even if you're a Sri Lankan going there, that you too would catch the scrub typhus, which was a fever like typhoid, a hot fever and being very weak. And there I was in hospital for many weeks because they did not know what the disease was. And I remember just feeling so weak, feeling just so sore, because when you have fever your whole body aches. And thinking to myself that I am a monk, I should be meditating rather than feeling negative. And practicing my anapanasati, focusing on my breath, until once again the body disappeared. You couldn't feel the fever, you couldn't feel the achy body, you couldn't feel any tiredness. And it was a wonderful gift to be able to have this freedom from the ache and pain of the body by just letting this body totally disappear. It is one of the reasons why in the last years of the Buddha said the only time he had freedom from the physical suffering of an old body was when he went into the jhanas, where it was free from the physical sensations of the body. It can be done. You can do it. But when it happens, please know it happens stage by stage. Part of your body disappears first of all, then other parts, as your awareness of your physical body vanishes. One of the brilliant ways of allowing your body to vanish is by doing the breath meditation, the anapanasati. It is one of the reasons why the Buddha taught anapana. Sometimes that people say there are many objects you can watch in meditation. Why was anapanasati considered one of the best, if not the best? And it is because it happens naturally if you don't even look for the breath. If you sit perfectly still and your body doesn't move, it has to disappear. Why? It is because nothing is happening there. Just like watching a wall. You're watching the body, it's not moving, it's not aching. After a while it just vanishes. The brain only knows what is changing or moving. So sitting still, the body will disappear naturally. Everything which is still vanishes. But what are the two parts of the body which are always moving, even if you're sitting like a rock? Your breath is always going in and out, and your heart is always beating. The thing is, we're not that sensitive to the beating of our heart, but we are very sensitive to the breath of our air going in and out of our lungs. When everything else is still, the last thing which is moving is usually your breath. So when I meditate and I sit down, I don't even try to look for my breath. I just let go and be still. All the body vanishes. I'm not looking at anything. My eyes are closed. I'm not paying any attention to sounds. Everything disappears, and the last thing which is left is my breathing, because it is the one thing still moving. Everything else is still. And it's a skill to be able to let go of the perception of the breath. And the way it is done, very well described by the Buddha in Anapanasati Sutta, is that you just calm that breath down and you focus right in the center of that breath, the breath happening right now, in this moment. And after a while, you don't notice whether it's an in-breath or an out-breath, because they both look the same in the moment. You don't even know whether it's the beginning of a breath, the middle of an in-breath, or the end of the in-breath. The classic simile is that taught by Acharya Buddhaghosa in Visuddhimagga, where he described a carpenter sawing a piece of wood. When he first begins sawing a piece of wood, he can see the handle of the saw, the tip of the saw, and maybe the whole plank of wood. But as you focus in, after a short while, all the carpenter can see is the 1 or 2 teeth of the saw cutting that small, maybe centimeter or 2 of wood. That is where the important part is. That's where he focuses. And all he can see is 2 or 3 saw teeth and maybe a centimeter of wood. And he does not know whether those 2 or 3 teeth are at the end of the saw or close to the handle, because they all look the same. What is happening there with the breath is all you know is breath is happening. You don't know whether it's in or out, because it feels the same. You don't know whether it's beginning or middle or end, because, again, it feels the same. The experience, the sensation of breath is becoming even and unchanging. It has to do that if you're going to allow the last physical sensation of breathing to vanish. And it does. Once you can't distinguish between beginning or end, in or out breath, it's just breath. Soon the breath will disappear. And with it, the whole of your physical body. The last part of your body has gone. And that's why usually what happens next, people see what you all know is called the nimita, the beautiful light which appears in the mind. And that light which appears in the mind is not a physical light. You are not seeing it with your eyes. We are very fortunate to be meditating this week here in Bandrawela, in the clouds, in the mist, where it's raining. You can never believe that that must be the sun shining in your eyes. There is no sun this week. We're in clouds. You can never believe that that must be the headlight of a car. It's not. It's a nimitta. No one is shining a flashlight into your face. It's a nimitta. I mention this because so many people who experience a nimitta for the first time think that it's not a real one, they're imagining it, or it's some natural phenomena. In the experience I've had teaching this meditation for so many years, 99.9% of the time it is a real nimitta. Don't doubt it. It's a mind, because that's what this nimitta is. A nimitta is a sign. This is like the sign of your citta, of your mind. It's just how it appears to most people. There's a beautiful light which appears in the mind. It does not matter what color it is. It does not matter what shape it is. What's important is its beauty and intensity, which will grow as the meditation deepens. The important thing is, now the 5 senses have stopped, and now you're getting to know the mind, its power, its beauty, and its bliss, and also exactly what it is, to understand the emperor. But this can only be accessed when you are still. And of course, what do most people do? They try to be still. And the reason, what happens then is you don't even sort of get past what they call first base. You end up thinking with restlessness, with a wandering mind. The reason is because you are trying too hard. The reason I asked for a glass of water this morning was not that I'm going to be thirsty. I wanted to use this as a demonstration for you. The water stands for your body and mind. Now I'm going to make this water perfectly still. How do you make water perfectly still? Okay, I'm going to hold it still and I'm going to concentrate. I need your help on this. Can you please tell me when it stops moving? I'll put my hand down a bit so you can see better. Is it moving? So I'll try harder. I'm really focusing. Strange, when I try to focus it moves more. Okay, I'll concentrate. I'm really trying my best to hold this still. Am I succeeding? Now do you understand why you haven't had any success in your meditation? You can't hold water still, no more than you can hold your body and mind still. If you hold it, try, you just create more movement. But of course, those of you who've seen the simile before, it's so easy. You just put the thing down. But please notice, I'm going to do this again. Those in the front row, when I put it down, it moves more at first. When you let go and stop striving, the mind gets more restless than it was before. But don't interfere. Be patient. Now, is that moving? Perfectly still? Pretty much so. And it's so easy to do. Now that is how people meditate. You try and hold your mind, and it will never, ever be still. You let it go, and at first it moves more. Wait, be patient, and it stops by itself. The other thing which many people do, they put it down. Is it still yet? Oh, not yet. Is it still? No, not yet. Come on. When are you going to be still? Come on. If you put it down, let it go, and wait, and don't be impatient. And that is actually the way that people meditate and get into these jhanas. And it's one of the toughest things for a human being to do, to let go totally, so you don't control your body or your mind. You get out of the way and let it happen. That's why, even though I've got a great reputation as being a meditation teacher, I've gone on public record, and I will say it here, Ajahn Brahm cannot meditate. Ajahn Brahm is a hopeless meditator. Ajahn Brahm, I have to disappear first of all. I have to get totally out of the way, and then meditation happens. So I take no responsibility for my meditation. Do you understand? I have to disappear and vanish. I can't do anything. If I do my meditation, it always goes wrong. When I disappear, I vanish. I put things down. Then my mind becomes still and deep very, very quickly. I don't know the Pali, but the English translation from the Visuddhimagga, the great poem, the path is, but no traveller on it is seen. Nirvana is, but not the person who enters it. I've got the quote somewhere in my book, in my room. It's one of the great poems from the Visuddhimagga. The path is, but no traveller on it is seen. No one who's walking the path. No person who's doing the meditation. So if you're doing the meditation, if you're taking responsibility for it, if you're the driver, the controller, the maker, you're a traveller, and the path into jhanas has disappeared. But when you disappear, when there's no traveller, then the path is as wide as a many-lane highway. You can't miss it. So the path of deep meditation is a huge amount to do with wisdom, with understanding, not with willpower. Willpower, trying and struggling, just gives you a stronger sense of self. It just makes a bigger atta. Will is the food of the self, in the same way that rice and curry is your food, like grass is the food for the buffaloes and the cows. So craving, desire, will, even for good things, creates a stronger sense of personality, not a weaker one. Letting go, being patient, putting things down, weakens the atta, until it totally disappears temporarily in the deep states of meditation. So it's a tough thing to do, to let go, and just to allow the process to happen. But with training, with experience over many years, I found that whenever I interfere with the process of meditation, I always hinder it. And as soon as I just stand back and let it happen, it all goes so smoothly. I will give you another simile. You know that last night there was a bit of wind. Sometimes there were storms. But during those storms, I've seen the trees sway backwards and forwards very violently sometimes. And I know that in each of those trees there are some birds. The birds are sleeping because it's night time. And I wonder, how can a bird sleep on a tree during a storm without falling off? If that was me, sleeping on a branch or a twig, when that tree moved, I would fall off. But birds, they don't fall off. Have you ever seen a dead bird at the bottom of the tree after a storm? I haven't. And there is a scientific reason why. The birds have 2 feet, and they have claws. In order for those claws to close up, they have to relax. They have to let go. The more they relax, the more their claws close and grip onto the tree. If they get tense and they open up, then they fall off. If they relax, they're perfectly safe, and they don't fall off at all. It's very much like you and your meditation object. If you try, you will keep falling off. If you relax, you'll stay on. Or like when I was a young boy and had my first bicycle. I was so scared of falling off. I would grip the handlebars until my knuckles went white, and I kept falling off until I learned how to relax on the bike. When you're relaxing on the bicycle, your body can move this way and that way to balance itself. When you're tense, you're so stiff. That's why I kept falling off. Just like a bird, when it relaxes, it is still. Like me as a kid, when I relaxed, I never fell off my bike. Like me as a meditator, when I let go and relax, I never fall off my meditation object. When I try, I fall off. That's why this letting go, once you understand it, is the path to stillness. No way can you hold your mind still. You have to put it down, and it's still by itself. As I said last night, the nature of a leaf is to be still. It only moves because someone is moving it. Your mind. You are moving it. And of course, when that mind gets the nimita, that's what we call the pabhasara citta. This mind, when it's free from its 5 hindrances, is pabhasara, said the Buddha. That's why it is a beautiful light, a radiant light. The more the 5 hindrances have disappeared, the more radiant that light actually is. But of course, the hindrances which stop you even getting that far, so many people, they think, wander. And which is why that when I teach meditation, even before you start looking for the breath, always make sure that the 2 causes for the hindrances are overcome as soon as possible. That's why when I teach meditation, I ask people, for the first thing you focus on after you've sat down and made the body comfortable is on the present moment. So please, at the very beginning, give up all future perceptions and all memories of the past, perfectly, precisely. You find that helps enormously. Because when you start thinking and wondering, where do you wander off to? It's usually about what you're going to do next. How are you going to meditate next? What are you going to do when this talk finishes? What are you going to do when this retreat finishes? Sometimes people have got their whole life planned out. To show you what I mean, when you have your lunch at 11 o'clock, I want you to try and practice the one mouthful at a time meditation. Which means, when you've got a mouthful of food, don't put another mouthful on your spoon or in your hand. I've seen that sometimes. People have got a mouthful and they're chewing it. They've got another mouthful in their hand waiting. And they've already decided what the third mouthful is going to be. You're way into the future. So just, you pick up the food, you put it in your mouth, and you chew that. And once you've swallowed it, only then do you decide what you're going to put in your hand for the next mouthful. Present moment awareness. You find how tough that actually is. But try it. And also when you are meditating, just what's happening now. The past is unchangeable, it's gone, it's finished. It's a waste of time worrying or thinking about. When you are concerned about the past, you are a prisoner of the past. You can never be free in this moment to be still. So please walk out of any prisons of the past. I don't care who said what to who and why and when. I don't care whose fault it was or whose fault it wasn't. It's the past, it's gone. Let it go, be free. Thinking about it just hurts you. So when we learn how to let go of the past, we have hardly anything to think about in meditation. When we also realize that now, this very moment, is where your future is being made. This moment called now is the only time you can do anything about your future. So if you care about your future, stay in the present. The place where your future happiness, peace, stillness, enlightenment is being made right now. So that helps you notice the value and importance of the present moment. As I said 2 nights ago in Narada Center, if you truly value this moment called now, if you value it much more than the past or the future, then you're not interested in past or future. It's just not worth it. It's not valuable. So, to do a marketing campaign in your own mind, to put much more value on this present moment and take away all the value from the past and the future. And then you'll find the mind will want to stay in the moment, because it knows it's the only place to be. That's the first cause of the hindrances, past and future. In fact, it's the major cause. All craving, karma chanda, it's always about something in the future, something you want. In the present moment, how can karma chanda exist? Vyapada, that's all about something which happened a few moments ago or earlier. Ill will is about something which is past. In the present moment, how can there be the first 2 hindrances? There can't. There could be sloth and torpor, there could be restlessness and doubt, but not the first 2. And the second thing which I encourage people to do is to learn how to be silent and to value silence much more than thinking. There's an old story which I take from the Taoist tradition. Lao Tzu, one of the famous Chinese teachers, would go for a walk every evening. And when he went for a walk, he'd allow one student to accompany him on the walk every evening. And this one day, a new student went on the walk with the master. But there was a golden rule that you had to be quiet when you went on a walk in the evening with the master. No one was allowed to speak, not even one word. But it happened they reached a ridge in the mountains at sunset, and it was a beautiful sunset, and the young student couldn't help himself but say, "What a beautiful sunset that is." He'd broken the rule, he'd spoken, and the master turned around and went back to the monastery, and would never allow that young man to go on a walk ever again with him. When this young man's friend said, "He's only a young man, it was only one sentence, and what's so wrong with that?" And that's when the great teacher said, "When my student said, 'What a beautiful sunset,' he was not watching the sunset anymore. He was only watching the words. He wasn't watching the sunset. He was just watching the words." There's a huge difference between the words, "What a beautiful sunset," and the sunset which is beyond words. If you understand that, you understand why the only way you can ever understand the Dhamma is in silence, not through the words. Once, there's another restaurant simile. Once there was a professor of philosophy in Colombo, in a great university, and he heard that a new restaurant had opened up in Colombo 5. It was a 5-star restaurant, and because he liked his food, he rang up to book a table. It was such a popular restaurant, the tables were booked for the next 2 months. Nevertheless, he made a reservation. The weeks went by, and when he came for the day when he had a reservation in this 5-star restaurant, he dressed up in a very good suit. He turned up at the restaurant, and they had to ask for his ID. When they checked his name and found he had a reservation, the maitre d' took him to the table in this beautiful restaurant. The waiter came in a beautiful tails, as you would expect in such an expensive restaurant, and gave him the menu. The menu was printed on thick card in gold lettering, because it was a very expensive restaurant. The professor took the menu and thanked the waiter, and when the waiter left, the man ate the menu, paid, and left. The meaning of that story is, the professor did not know the difference between the menu and the food. Like many people don't know the difference between the words and the meaning. So when you're meditating, don't eat menus. Eat food. Be quiet. Be still. And you find it so easy to meditate when the mind is not talking to itself, when you're experiencing the Dhamma rather than taking notes. So that's why when I meditate, I spend a lot of my first few minutes making sure I'm in the present moment. I'm letting go of the past and the future, making sure I'm silent, I'm not having an inner conversation with myself. And then if I really want to, I turn to the breath, but usually the breath comes to me by that time. And if ever during the meditation I'm not making progress, I don't try harder. I just notice the reason why. Often it's because I've lost my present moment. I'm expecting something to happen, which is future awareness. Or I'm upset it hasn't worked so far, which is past awareness. Instead, I let those two go and go totally in the present moment. And then things become very still. Because I'm not doing anything. Just sitting there still, in this moment, mindful, and I should say kind, and appreciative of this moment. Then everything becomes very still. One other way, an important way, the last little piece of advice in this morning's talk, to be able to stay in the present moment, or to be able to stay in silence, or even to be able to stay with your breath, Why is it that sometimes you're watching the breath and you can't stay very long? A lot of times it's because you're not kind to your breathing. Your breath is not your slave. Don't look upon it as something you can control and order around. Look upon your breath like a friend. Now, I'm not sure if this simile would work with many of the monks here, but it certainly will work with the white monks here. When you had a friend before you became a monk, and you rang up your friend and said, "Are you free this afternoon? Would you like to come out for a cup of coffee?" And they said yes. And you said, "Good. We'll go to Starbucks. We won't go to Dome. We won't go to Gloria Jean's. We'll go to Starbucks. And we'll sit at a table in the corner. Not your favourite table, my favourite table. And we'll have a latte. You will not have cappuccino or flat white. You will or long black. You'll just have what I like, latte. And you won't have a biscuit. You will have a muffin. And we'll sit and talk about Buddhism. We won't talk about what you want to talk about. We'll talk about what I want to talk about. We'll talk about for 1 hour. Not 55 minutes. Not 1 hour and 5 minutes. And then we'll go. Okay? Now, what would happen if you treated a friend like that? Your friend would say, "Oh, sorry, I'm busy, I can't come." Now, that is how you treat your breath. Breath, you go in and come out this way. You meditate together for 1 hour. We won't do it your way, we'll do it my way. You're going to be watched at the tip of the nose, not anywhere else, okay? No wonder your breath doesn't like you. No wonder when you start watching your breath, after 1 or 2 minutes, it's hiding. It's run away, and you can't find it. It's hiding from you. Do you understand the simile? So be kind to your breath. At a recent retreat, one of my disciples, every morning, every hour, they asked their mind, what do you want to do for the next 5 minutes? And they had some beautiful meditations. They never told their mind what to do. They never ordered it. Mind, sit down, be quiet, get jhana. Instead, they looked at their mind and said, "Mind, how are you today? What do you want to do?" And because they were kind to their mind wanted to stay with them. They had beautiful meditation all day. Do you understand? Give it a try and see what happens. Sometimes the mind says, "Oh, I just want to be dull. I want to have sloth and torpor." Say, "Okay, mind, fine with me. You go off and sloth and torpor and I'll wait for you." And after you've had your sloth and torpor, the mind says, "Thank you very much. Now I'm going to play with you and get jhana for you." That's basically how it happens. So don't control your mind. Don't treat your mind like a slave. Treat it with kindness, like the Buddha treated all his Sangha, with kindness, never like a master ordering a slave. So I've given you a lot this morning already. The main teaching this morning is about stillness, putting the glass down, being patient. Remember, it takes time. You put it down, it's not still straight away. Be patient. You think it's not working. Be patient. Give it time and it does work. The path is, but no traveller on it is seen. Understand that, you understand how to meditate. So that's enough for now. There'll be another talk later on this afternoon. And of course, I think in the evening, if I remember the schedule correctly, there'll be opportunities for questions and answers. And so I don't know if we've organised this yet, but hopefully we can have some pieces of paper out so that you can actually write those questions down, so they can be anonymous if you wish. You can write them in Sinhala and someone will translate them for me, so that way your questions can be answered. Happy meditating.